Hiya, Martin here. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the tools I use and why I use them. And today's episode we are going to be looking at compressed air and the vacuum chuck system that I use in my workshop. But as you can probably tell, I'm not in my workshop. I'm actually in a shed out the back of the property. We're very lucky to have enough space to be able to keep various noisy things out and away from our earshot, and also customers and students too. So out here in the shed we've got our super silent Hyundai oil-free compressor, and also our twin bag extraction system here, which will feature in another video I expect. But out here we can keep this, and although it's made me jump, so it's just started and it is pretty quiet, as you might be able to hear, but it's not as quiet. You know, we can't keep the workshops completely quiet if this keeps kicking off every so often, so we keep it out the back here in a shed. It's got a 50-litre tank, twin pistons that fill up the tank, and then we've got a run of hose that goes obviously from the compressor out into the workshops. So after the air hose runs all the way through the teaching room, through the wood turning shop, it splits just over there, with one hose going into Les Thorne's workshop and the other one coming here into my workshop, where it connects up to an air gun. Very simple, pretty cheap, super useful piece of kit, this air gun. And I'm using Euro connections as well, just clip on, clip off jobs, or rather clip off, clip on, whatever, for everything. So if I do need to use an air sander or something like that, a very common fitting is the Euro one, so that's what we're using here. So underneath my shelving normally there's an airbrush compressor that sits here, but the hose comes in, it comes round here into a pressure gauge and a moisture trap, where it splits again to the air gun. This is the hose to the air gun, and this black one here that comes out over there, that black one there comes into the Holdfast vacuum chuck. So it's this that we're really wanting to talk about, the Holdfast vacuum generator. I've got it mounted permanently to the workshop wall, and a very easy connection system and stuff set up on the lathe, which I'll show you in a minute. It's really simple. Up the top you've got a vacuum chuck, which I'll show you in a minute, and then to increase the suction you just turn it on like that, and then it lets air in through here, which creates low pressure in the tube, which sucks the piece onto the chuck on the lathe. Now up here at the business end of the vacuum system there is this threaded tube here that runs through the spindle and creates an airtight seal just back here. Now when it comes, it's much longer than this, so what I did was I actually cut it down to length, but very simply it threads through the back of the spindle, and then you thread on the nut at the end with the rubber washer, like that, then put on the plastic sort of O-ring, and then screw on the chuck, and then give it a little tighten up with a big spanner, and you're done. And then you can mount your piece onto the vacuum chuck by holding it in place or using the tailstock for a bit of support and turning the vacuum on, and then taking the tailstock away nice and carefully. And that's it. Now I do use two chucks, and I will always use the biggest chuck that I possibly can for the piece that I'm vacuum chucking, because the bigger the chuck, the better the vacuum and the better support for the piece. So I use the 6-inch chuck and also the 3-inch vacuum chuck too. And another really handy piece of kit for this system is if a piece is mounted on a chuck or a faceplate with a chuck, or a spindle mounted faceplate, then I use one of these, which enable me to take the piece off the lathe still on its chuck or faceplate, screw that into the back, or screw that into the spindle mount of the chuck or the faceplate, stuff it in the tailstock, slide it up, mount it onto the mount it onto the vacuum chuck like that, turn the vacuum on, and then I know the piece is going to be perfectly centered. Now overall, I really like the Holdfast vacuum generator system. It's quick and it's easy to set up, even if you don't have it mounted permanently to the wall like I do there. Relatively inexpensive, and of course I didn't have to buy a specific vacuum generating pump in order to use a vacuum pump system. I think it produces a perfectly adequate vacuum for the pieces that I need to use a vacuum chuck for, but of course when you're just relying on suction rather than anything physical holding your piece to the lathe, then make sure you are turning within your ability, and also you read all of the manufacturer's instructions before you get started. Many thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and informative. Down here are a few videos I think you may find of interest, and if you click just down here you'll be able to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so just yet. But that's it for now. Thank you very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.